Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Drama Surgery Podcast. If you're new here, I am Emmy. I cover dramas week by week, and in this episode, I am going to be covering the Korean drama titled Our Unwritten Soul. Currently, we are on episode 9 and 10, and I have covered all the previous episodes leading up to this point. So, do check out my previous reviews of this drama. I am unintentionally following this week to week and giving my review of this week to week. So do check that out before you watch this. This drama has been good so far, which is what has caused me to cover it every week leading up to this point. And while I will say that I do have some qualms and issues I want to talk about in this episode, generally I am still really enjoying this, and I think just generally this is going to be one of the better dramas for me for 2025. And honestly, I have not been watching as much dramas or Korean dramas at least this year. So this has actually been a pleasant surprise and it has me hooked. And I love it very much. So let's get right into it. Last week we ended with the colleagues at Mire's company telling her to try and open this room that needs like finger ID to get into. And so that's kind of their way of checking to make sure that she's who she says she is and she's not actually her twin sister. Um like I predicted last week, I knew that it was gonna be Mireille at that point. So, she's able to use her finger ID and open the door, and all is well on that front, right? But we still have issues, right? And these last episodes were a lot more there's a lot more meat in these last episodes. We find out more things. Let's run through it though. In this last episodes, we find out more about Mireille's office situation. We figure out that, she, because she testified for one of our colleagues, that is kind of what spurred on this bullying and workplace harassment that is ongoing. And we also see that in terms of our colleague that, was the whistleblower. The reason why she did it was because she noticed some discrepancy and some, I guess, fraud going on with the construction company that they were working with, right? And if you notice, that is the same construction company that is trying to buy up the restaurant owner's land, right? And so you can see that everything is kind of linking together in that way. And so you can kind of see, or I at least already kind of know how this drama is gonna like play in and tie in and end. And it's gonna be, I think, a lot of our characters fighting together. We have Hosu on like the restaurant owner side, we have Miri fighting from the company side, and I think it's all gonna like work together to kind of bring down everybody responsible, right? But yeah, that's something I'll say about Korean dramas. They do tend to link things up like that, especially these kinds of dramas, right, that are like a little shorter, right? Because you have to kind of find a way to tie up all the loose ends, right? So that is kind of what is going on. And we find out that obviously the colleague that has been kind of on our side this whole time is the sibling. Like that is really confirmed in this episode. And he's the one that, is willing to take this on and has been acting kind of like as a double agent in the company and gathering information to, use to report them to HR, right? On Hoso and Mire's relationship, they've gone to the point where like they are more comfortable. They are kissing. It was very good. I like how they kind of spoke through all that they were feeling. Although I see at the end of episode 10 that also insecurity about his ears and his disability is going to come back because it seems like he's losing his ability to hear permanently, or that's what it seems like. So we'll see how that goes, but I can see how that is an obstacle that is to come for them, right? But I'm sure they will walk through it because again, Miji is just an amazing person, and you know that she's gonna be by him. For Miji, our own character development has taken a back burner to Mireille's in the sense that she doesn't really progress in like our own like personal goals and development because she's been trying to help Mireille achieve hers or just being there for Mireille, right? And so in these last two episodes we see as she struggles with trying to understand what her purpose is, and at a point she tells also that she's gonna go back, and she does go back, and that's when she has that talk with her mom, and you see that a lot of where our anxiety, our fear, our reason for staying back as well is coming from the fact that she feels the need to, right? She feels the need to be with her mom and take care of her grandma, because I think she also sees that as kind of partly her fault, which it's not, but I can see how she feels that way. And so I was really glad that the mom really told her, go to Seoul, because obviously she's always wanted to be in Seoul, right? And so I'm glad that she finally like moved to Seoul, staying with Hosu for the time being, um, and trying to figure out what she wants to do. We are like only 2 episodes left before the end of this, so I wonder how it's gonna play out. Again, I don't think she's gonna have that great of a character development in terms of like what our goals is. I think they're just gonna give us something um off the cuff. My theory is that it's either the restaurant owner passes on the restaurant to her or something of that sort. Like it's gonna be something that she's just gonna fall into, because they've not really established a lot about what she wants to do or wants to be, right? So we'll see how that goes, right? In terms of Ansejin and Mireille, I think their relationship is interesting because they've not still had like a romantic moment really. But I will say that I feel like Hansejin's presence is giving Mireille a kind of, not consciously, but I think she's unconsciously like having more strength than she would normally have, because she almost has like a fallback now that Hansejin has given her that option to like go to the US with him and be his business partner. Because I mean, they are business partners in like a local farm in the village, right? So I think a lot of it is, if I'm being honest, it's romantic, but I think it's at this point what Mireille needs to kind of know that she has some value, that she's not stuck there, that she's like just not useless, right? But again, I don't know if they're gonna make it romantic at the end of the day. It seems romantic to me, but again, Asejin is so difficult to tell. He's kind of like an oddball, so I don't know how he views Mireille. I thought I did, but I'm just not sure anymore, right? So I'm just glad that she has an extra person that is there to, comfort her and be there for her, right? One thing I also want to mention about this drama and, the way the characters are written is how they make characters relate to one another. One thing that really stuck to me in episode 10 was the scene where Hosu goes and talks to his former boss about the fact that, what he's doing to Rosa, the restaurant owner, is not good, it's not fair, right? And in that moment, Osu, I think, starts to realize that his former boss isn't that good of a person, right? And I think in that moment he also has this like trigger, and his ear starts to hurt, and he's kind of like bending down, clutching his ear, and you actually see the concern in his former boss's like visage. Like you see that his former boss is actually worried about him. Like, are you okay? Like, what is wrong? Like, he's visibly worried about Hosu. I find that very interesting, because to an extent they've made it seem like, these people are becoming enemies, right? Especially coming from Hosu's former boss. It seems like he's particularly very like vindictive, like he's being sort of mean to Hosu, right? Like trying to like undermine his work and things like that. But in this scene, I really like how they show that he still cares about Hosu. And I really like this actor, just to say. I really like this actor. But I like how they showed still in that moment how he cared, and like you see him come forward and Hosu steps back. It's very interesting. And I really wish, we'd gotten more of them and seen their dynamic, because they are two sides of the same coin, right? Where Hosu is like unbelievably naively good, where his former boss is like just a realist and a capitalist, but they are very similar people, right? You imagine that, like, or as I imagine his former boss to have once been someone like Hosu, right? And just time in industry made him who he is now. And so it was just interesting seeing that scene. Now, on to the final thing that I want to talk about before I talk about the one issue I have with this drama. And I think this is the highlight of this last 2 episodes, is the relationship that we see between Rosa and her friend, who is the actual Rosa, right? Because I remember like almost shedding tears as we watched like the flashback between them. And I've always felt that there was something interesting about the way the restaurant owner like reacted when it came to her past, right? And so seeing how they lived, right? Seeing her go through so much because she's illiterate and everything. Um, there was a moment where I was like, is this romantic? Like I thought about that right before they showed a moment of jealousy, right? That she felt for her friend, right? Being complimented by a guy. Um, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes more sense, right? And I just really like that whole arc as it showed us like their relationship, because where the restaurant owners like feelings for our friend are like romantic and everything, you can see that for the friend it's not necessarily like that, right? And they never really like address it between the two of them, the two friends, right? But I think they both knew that I was there, or that's like my reading of this, right? And despite everything, how they were able to be good friends, right? And the selflessness, and just in terms of like when I think of what true love means, I think that is what I would consider true love. I think that is one of the best depictions, representations of love, that is not necessarily romantic. I mean, it is from the restaurant owners point of view, but it's still not necessarily romantic, but it's very selfless and good and just pure, right? And you know I like that last scene where the restaurant owner goes into the other room to get something, and she hears Osu and Miji talking in the other room, and it flashes back to when our friend tells her that one day you meet good people, you meet people who will read to you, and who will be good to you, right? And um that moment, just like, oh, it was so good. And this is like the essence of like why I think this drama is amazing. Right? It's moments like that that just speaks to me, and I really liked that moment, right? And I just really like that arc, and she has come out to be like the most compelling character of all of them to me, right? And it's so touching and so beautiful, and I almost started crying because her friend dying was honestly the worst. And for sure, like, I can see why she's never gonna sell. Like, I could immediately see why she could never sell, right? And yeah, it was just so beautiful, right? But yeah, that was just the scene. I was like, oh, this is just everything, right? But yeah, now that I have mentioned all the things I like about this drama up to this point, I just want to mention one thing that is glaring. And I don't know if it's just me, it might just be me because I am giving them too much credit, or I am maybe not being honest about how human beings operate. But I feel like some characters and their interactions are still a little juvenile, or should I say, they have not developed well enough for me to believe them. For example, Mireille, from episode 1 up to episode 10, to the very last moment, until she suddenly changes her mind and decides to continue with the whistle blowing. Mireille doesn't seem to actually like grow, right? Like, I don't know how to explain it, but she's still exactly the same person she was in episode 1, right? There's not much that's changed about her. And to even talk more about that, in our relationship with Miji, am I the only one who feels that like I don't understand how these two are twins? Like, they've never really shown me that these two even like each other, I would say. The only moment that we see that is in, like, I think episode 10, where, at the beginning we see Miji hitting Park Sang Young, right? When he comes and like basically assaults Mireille, right? There was a moment there where she's like, yeah, hit him more, no one is coming. And that was one of the only moments of sibling bonding that I've ever seen them have, where it seems like Mireille and Miji were on like the same wavelength. And it's not to say that siblings should always have that, especially twins, but I just don't see a lot of their relationship, right? When they talk, they're always like snippy, or at least Mireille is always snippy towards Miji. They always seem to be arguing, right? So I wish they had shown us more of that bond and watched them become closer in the way they've shown like Mireille and Han Sejin get closer. We are just supposed to like take their relationship as like a matter of fact that like, yeah, they're twins and so they know each other, like each other, but they actually never show us that, and it feels a little kind of you know not too bad. It's just a little that I'm like, yeah. And so yeah, same for Mire's personality and growth. I just don't feel like she really changed. And again, I might be thinking too deeply about this, and not giving enough credit to the fact that this is still ongoing in her life and she has no time to heal yet. And yeah, so maybe I am reading a little bit too much into this, right? But yeah, same for Hosuit. Since that, like in episode 11 and 12, he's also gonna go back to who he was when he was a lot younger, right? Which is like to ignore and not tell people what's going on, right? So it seems like none of them really like are getting healed, right? It seems like no one is having that healing, and maybe it's me that I'm the issue for thinking it's a healing drama rather than like a slice of life. Um, but yeah, I just felt like by episode 10, I feel like I should get a sense that like my characters are getting better as people. Yet the plot is moving forward, but I feel like it's not necessarily because our characters are like um changing as opposed to like the story is just moving in that direction and those things have to happen. But like, they're all just the same people. And anyways, that's just my sense, right? And I might just be definitely reading into this. But yeah, that's really all I have in this episode. I am loving this. I'm gonna be covering it again next week for the last 2 episodes. And yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I will see you guys again next week. Have a lovely one. Bye.